It's the middle of the year and it is time to freak out. So I've filled out the mid-year freakout tag a couple of times over on my blog, but this is the first time I've ever filmed one for YouTube. So this tag is a bit of a book community staple and it's been running for several years. The original creators are Is That Chammy and Earl Grey Books, and I will link both of them in the description below, although I think Earl Grey Books is the only one that is still actively producing content. The first question is about the best book you have read so far in 2025, and what a question to start with. I honestly don't know the best book I've read so far. I've read a lot of really good books. I don't know that I have read an all-time favourite. The closest thing I can probably think of is The Hands of the Emperor by Victoria Goddard. But I'm not 100% convinced that this isn't recency bias. I read this during the Amazing Readathon for, I think, the Ketterdam leg. And so it's one of the more recent books that I finished, and I did give it 5 stars. It is a 1,000-page book though, so I'm not sure if that factors into how well-rounded and fleshed out I thought the characters were, because maybe I should be comparing it to a series rather than just a single book. But I did really enjoy it. I won't try and explain it too much. If you want more detail, you can look in the Amazing Readathon vlog that I put out that week. But basically it follows Kylifer, who is the personal secretary to the Emperor, the Sun on Earth, his regency. And the book kind of splits itself between Kylifer in his personal secretary role. He's kind of a prime minister. He's the one actually running the government. He's the one that is trying to push through social reforms against the princes. He's trying to implement things like universal basic income. He's trying to implement things that will help the lower classes. And he's very much at he's the peak of government. He is probably the most powerful man in the world, but he's very mild-mannered and just very determined. He keeps his head down and he's going to get his aims without making a big fuss of it. At the same time, Kylifer comes from this outlying region where, because he went off to work in the city, his family feel like he hasn't achieved much. They feel like he's wasted his life because he hasn't been in their community, and they don't see the status as transferable. They don't really understand the job he does. They don't understand the way his reforms and his policies play out on a greater scale. And so he's very much torn between assimilating to the court and maintaining his own heritage. And the book is very slice of life. It's very cozy political fantasy, and I definitely don't think it's for everyone. It's very slow paced. There's really no action. There's no real driving force. But I personally really enjoyed it. The best sequel that I have read this year is the second question. And I think I'm going to cheat a little bit for this one as well. This year I took part in Margaret and Leandra's Little Thieves read-along. We done one a month. I'd already read the original Little Thieves, but I hadn't read Painted Devils or Holy Terrors. And doing one a month was really perfect for me because it fitted in with some readathons I was doing, but also it gave me enough time between books to kind of process it. I really enjoyed the discussions they had. I know the final book, Holy Terrors, did kind of, I think it split the hosts, but also there was some split opinions in the comments about whether it had went off too far on a tangent, whether it had pulled in too many aspects. But I really enjoyed both of those sequels. I loved Little Thieves just as much in a reread, and I do still think that book can be read completely as a standalone. It's a Goose Girl retelling that follows the evil maid that takes the Goose Girl's place in the Prince's Palace. And from then it kind of spins off on its own, drawing from German folklore along the way. It went a lot deeper into the surrealism and the fantasy elements in that kind of third act of the final book, but I did think it all still tied together really well. Painted Devils might be the stronger book. It's a bit more concise. It does feel more like it has a smoother narrative, but I did enjoy the ending of Holy Terrors. There were some twists I hadn't seen coming, and I really liked that some of the things that were set up ended in ways that I don't think you get to see often enough. I thought Margaret Owen made some bold choices, especially in a traditionally published book, especially in a YA. and it was just a great series overall. So I think I'm going to pick Painted Devils / Holy Terrors as my favourite sequel of the year so far. The third question is a new release book that you haven't read yet but want to. And I mean, backlist TBR, I have a lot of books from this year that I haven't read yet that I still want to. But I think I'm going to pick Treachery of Swans by A.B. Poranic. This came out just in June, so I haven't had a chance to get to it yet, but I really want to. It was at the start of 2025. This was my most anticipated book of the entire year. So I really do intend to get to it very, very soon. I just, with the Amazing Readathon, haven't had a chance to pick it up yet. My only like regret in life is that as nice as this cover is, and it is nice, it has the foiling, it's very pretty, it's purple. I just prefer the American cover. The American cover looks much more, this I would say looks very fantasy-y, very fairy tale-esque, whereas the American cover looks very dark, it looks very gothic, and I really hope that that's the tone the book goes for, so I'm a little jealous that I don't have that cover, but I am really excited to read the book anyway. It is a sapphic Swan Lake retelling, and I was immediately 100% sold on it, so I really hope that I'm going to get to it very, very soon. We're following that one up with our most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I'm gonna pick two. The first one is a new to me author, as far as I know a standalone, and that is Crafting for Sinners by Jenny Kiefer. This is coming out on October 7th, so it's going to be perfect for Halloween and spooky season, and it's about a queer woman that has to fight her way out of a big box craft store that is being run by some kind of religious cult. I think it looks so much fun, and it just seems like exactly the level of horror and humour that would appeal to me. My most anticipated sequel for the second half of the year is Mirage City by Lev A.C. Rosen. This is the fourth book in the Evander Mills series. These are historical mysteries. They're set in 1950s San Francisco, and they have a kind of noir feel to them. They have been so far really good at looking at different elements of queer culture in the 1950s in San Francisco specifically that maybe don't get a lot of other representation. The first book, Lavender House, was very much about a kind of a lavender marriage. It was about hiding and finding ways to hide. The next books, Rough Pages and The Bell in the Fog, were about race and community. One of them was about censorship of books and how people got around that in some ways when they could. One of them had to do with don't ask, don't tell policies. And there've been things like queer clubs, queer nightclubs, queer communities, and police raids and homophobia. The mysteries have always been really good, but the world is personally what I'm really there for. I really enjoyed them. I really enjoy Evander as a main character. He is by no means perfect. He is a PI, but he has been a policeman, and he left the police force when he was outed. So he definitely has a lot to overcome when it comes to getting this community to trust him to take on their cases. But he does have a foot in both worlds, and it makes it very interesting. This fourth book is going to leave San Francisco and take Andy to Los Angeles, where he's going to be investigating a secretive queer rights organisation that has some members go missing. And I'm very excited to read it. The next question is the biggest disappointment of the year so far, and I kind of have two for this. The first is The Vengeance, which I read as part of the Weird and Wonder buddy read. This was pitched as pirates meets vampires in the 17th century, and I was just, my mind exploded. It was everything I ever wanted. It was pitched as the vampires of Dumas, so there was a kind of idea that there would be some vengeance-y, I mean, it's in the title, I assume there's going to be some kind of revenge story plotline. The pirates were very much just the opening act, if that. Then the vampires didn't appear until I think like the 90% mark. And the protagonist, who supposedly was out for vengeance, she did nothing. It was a real disappointment of a book. My other option for this is Go Luck Yourself by Sarah Rash. This is the second book in, I think it's the Royals and Romance duology. The world takes the concept that holidays like Christmas, Valentine's Day, Halloween all have families that kind of embody that holiday. and these books are those families interacting. So it's a little bit like that grove between the worlds in A Nightmare Before Christmas. The first book was The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was the romance between the heir to the throne of Christmas and the prince of Halloween. And I actually love that book. I actually put it on my TBR for December last year and I didn't get to it. And I ended up reading it in January just because I still was interested. So it was out of season, but it was a 5-star for me. I had so much fun with that book and I was so excited about the sequel coming out. Go Luck Yourself takes the younger Christmas prince and it is the heir to St. Patrick's Day that he is falling for. And I think partly the reason I was so disappointed with this because I put so much effort into getting the book. Because for some reason the UK didn't have an ebook copy of it come out straight away. I don't know, it's probably out now, but it wasn't available immediately. So I ended up getting a physical copy of the book, even though I didn't have the first one in physical copy. And I thought, you know what? The version I got was really pretty with sprayed edges. I can go back and I'll get a shelf trophy of The Night Before Christmas. They'll look great together. And then I hated the book and I had to unhaul it and I was really disappointed. And it kind of boiled down to 2 reasons and both were to do with the love interest. Obviously I don't know Sarah Rash, I don't know the research she did, I don't know, but to me, I felt it was someone that had very much watched a couple of films and was confusing / combining Scottish and Irish and possibly a hint of Welsh into this mythical Celtic culture that does slapdash everything. Even the accents, when I read them in my head, sounded more Scottish than Irish, but just the word boyo thrown in every sentence. And that was also a problem that she wrote the accents phonetically, which one was just really annoying to read, but also implies that do Americans not have accents? Because no other character in this book has their accent written phonetically, apart from the Irish characters. Anyway, it really bugged me. I couldn't force myself through it. I don't know whether this might have worked better as an audiobook. I rage quit a couple of chapters in. I do though still have her next duology, which I think a similar vibe but with C&D rather than holidays as the nexus point for the romance. So we'll see how that goes. Then we have your favourite new author. This can either be a debut or a new to you author. And once again, I'm going to cheat a little and pick 2 because I can't decide between them. The first is Katie Watson, who I think I found in February. She is writing a mystery series. They're not quite cosy, but they're a mystery series. The first one is The Three Dahlias, and after that they become a very lively, so like a very lively murder, a very lively something. They're really interesting because the concept of the first one is that there is a book series that is beloved and the adaptation of the series is being made. And because of that, we bring together 3 actresses that have played the main character, Delilah Lively, at various points. So we have the original actress who's now in her 60s or 70s. Then we have the actress that played her in an 80s TV series. And then we have the actress that is going to be playing her in this brand new adaptation. And they all come together at the estate of the author. There's a murder and the 3 of them work together to solve it. And the next book is on the set of filming this first Delilah Lively adaptation, and then one's at a book festival, and they're all around this concept. So you tend to get sometimes references to this fictional book series as well. And I've just had a really great time with them. The 3 characters together, so we have Rosalind, Caro, and then Posey. There's a really nice dynamic between them because they have the different generations coming through, different attitudes towards fame and acting and romance. They've got different life experiences, and I enjoyed seeing the different generations working together. They are great characters and they're all very unique. I think there's 4 that I've read, and the 5th one is coming out later this year. My other new favourite author I only found just in June there when I read the only 2 books they have back to back, and I loved both of them. Aude Connolly writes, her most recent release is Wings in the Valley, which I read for the Emerald City leg of the Amazing Readathon. And this is a kind of the Shire from Lord of the Rings going through it. Basically this idyllic valley that these satyrs live in. They have an antagonistic relationship with the harpies that live nearby, but one day a dragon comes in and it annihilates all of the harpies, and sets about destroying the agriculture of the fauns to the point where they are probably going to have to move too. We then set up a faun and a harpy having to work together. They're going on a journey to try and find a human dragon slayer to bring back to the valley. And it's very, very enemies to lovers. There's road trip co-parenting against your will. And I really loved what Ed Connolly does with the two different species romance. Because usually in these things it's very superficial, because it would be creepy if it wasn't. But this really does look at the different cultures and the way their cultures clash up against each other and the misunderstandings they have because of things like body language or subtle tells and them reading each other the wrong way. Then I read, I think, her first book for a sightseeing prompt, and it was The Consort and I. And again, it's an interesting concept. We have an unnamed slave who is bought by the king's consort and gradually, over the course of the book, trained up to take part in the coup that these other enslaved people, including the consort, are looking to orchestrate. And again, love the romance. It's very slow burn, very, if not enemies to lovers, it has a very kind of awkward dynamic to lovers. And I really enjoyed it. It really worked for me as a romance and as a political fantasy. It's very short, but I think she did a lot of really good stuff within that space. So between those two books, I think Aud Connolly is definitely an author I'm going to be keeping an eye out for. She clearly has a really broad range of interests, a kind of broad writing style, and I'm interested to see where she'll go next. Next prompt is your newest fictional crush. I don't usually do the fictional crush thing, so it took me a minute, but I think the one I would pick for this is maybe not the fictional crush, it's maybe not a crush, but I have read and enjoyed, I think, my first proper dark academia romantasy. Like, both of those are not genres I tend to enjoy, despite being such a fantasy reader, but this book combines both, and yet somehow it really worked for me. And the main character does have that whole brooding shadow daddy cliche thing, but I actually was rooting for them. This is Arcana Academy by Alice Kova. It's a world where magical users ink tarot cards and are able to draw different magics from the different cards. And in this book we have our protagonist Clara, who is forced to go to the academy. Already has the skills, but she's been doing it off the books illegally. She has to go to the academy because the prince wants her to work for him to help take down the king, obviously. And they have a fake dating relationship to explain why she's there and why she's going to spend so much time with him. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, and maybe not a newest fictional crush, but definitely like a new favourite romance. Next one is your newest favourite character, and the one I'm going to pick for this I probably could have put down as my favourite book of the year if I considered the whole series. This is How to Bang a Billionaire by Alexis Hall, and it's the first in the Arden St Ives trilogy. Arden is the main character, and these books I think I gave them all a 4 or a 4.5, but overall I would have given the series a 5 stars. And so Arden is the character I would pick as my favourite new character. The books are pretty much a queer 50 Shades of Grey retelling, but done well. It's much more Arden's story. There are big swaths, especially in the second and third books, where they're not together at all. Arden has other platonic and non-platonic relationships that are equally, if not more important to him than the romance, which I loved. He builds a relationship with Caspian's fuck-up younger sister. He has a friend from college that you see that relationship through the books change and develop. He has a mentor from work that also becomes a kind of mentor in romance, in kink. And all of it, I really enjoyed the series. I thought Alexis Hall did some really interesting and unusual things with it. Trauma was a big thing, and we really looked into BDSM lifestyle and the different attitudes towards it and the way it plays into past traumas or doesn't, and etc, etc. But Arden, the main character, I really enjoyed. There is definitely an element of the kind of quirky voice that you get in Alexis Hall's other rom-coms, but maybe slightly more muted in this one, but it's definitely there. And I think that might split whether you enjoy this one. It's not as light as Boyfriend Material, but because it has that voiciness to it, I don't think it comes across as smouldering and as sultry as you might want if you wanted this book series for the spice. But I personally thought it was a really nice balance. Arden's a sweetheart, and I was very much on his side through all the injustices and he suffers. A book that made you cry, I am gonna go with Sunrise on the Reaping. I think it's probably gonna be the one a lot of people would pick for this prompt if they've read it this year. I wasn't planning to. I have read the first Hunger Games book, but I haven't read the others, but I've seen all the films. And I wasn't planning on reading this one, but I think it was Realmathon in March when it came out, and it was so, everyone in the server was talking about it, and I wanted to be part of the hype, and everyone happened to have it at the same time. So I went for it and I utterly loved the book. I don't know whether it's because I'll never get the chance to read The Hunger Games without having seen the movie. So whereas this one, although I'm really excited when the movie does come out, I got to experience it as a book first. So whether that's maybe why it really hit for me in a way that I don't know, maybe if you read The Hunger Games first, you would prefer that. And I do love the Hunger Games movies and I really enjoyed the Hunger Games book, but because it's a good adaptation, I think, I didn't get, when I was reading it, that kind of the surprises, the twists, none of that kind of, it'll never be the first, I'll never be able to go into the Hunger Games book not knowing the story. Whereas Sunrise on the Reaping, I was able to go in completely blind and I had a great time with it. And yeah, of course I cried. Everyone cried, didn't they? For a book that makes you happy, I'm going to go with Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is another book that was absolutely everywhere suddenly this year, which I don't know if it maybe got a trad pub deal and has been indie or something, because there's like 8 books and yet suddenly it's all over the place. But I did what everyone said, and that was to pick up the audio. Aliens have taken over the world, they have flattened the surface and destroyed most of humanity. The survivors have been sent underground into a series of dungeon levels, and they essentially have to kill monsters, face off bad guys, and work their way down the levels of the dungeon. If you get to the end of the dungeon, the survivor will get to rule the planet. But it's very much about the challenges along the way. And the audiobook does a great job of making it feel very much like a video game. There are little sound effects that are different. The narrator does different voices for the announcement system, for the power-ups. It's a really enjoyable experience as an audiobook. But the book is also just really fun too. I don't think I got as much out of it as someone that plays maybe RPGs. There's probably lots and lots of references I didn't get, but I did enjoy what I did get from it. And I thought Carl and Donut were just like such a good duo. They were hilarious together. So it really made me laugh. For the most beautiful book you bought this year, I have 2. The first is The Hymn to Dionysus by Natasha Pulley. This is the American version because I went out of my way to get this one because it's so pretty. And this is kind of a Greek mythology retelling, kind of just like ancient Greek romance. And the other book that I love is But Not Too Bold by Hashi Pueo. This is very, very small but very, very pretty. It's about a spider monster woman and the staff that work in the house looking after her. The final question is books you need to get to by the end of the year, and yeah, all of them. As I said, I still have obviously the ones that I didn't get to from the first half of the year and the ones that I'm anticipating coming out. Other books I would really like to read this year that haven't come out this year. I really want to continue the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I really want to pick up the Points of Hope series by Melissa Scott. I bought all 5. I think there's 6 out now, but there were 5, and I bought all 5 at once because I'm an idiot. And I really want to at least try some of that series this year. I also have quite a few horrors, backlist horrors, new horrors on my TBR. I've really been getting into horror this year. I did want to read more intentionally anyway, and I have quite a lot now on my TBR because it's a new to me genre, so obviously I've been picking up recommendations. That's my tag wrap up. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'd really appreciate if you could like, comment and subscribe, and let me know if you have the answers to any of these questions, especially obviously your best book of the year. That's the one that I really want to know about, but I will also be really entertained by your most disappointing ones. And hopefully I will remember to maybe film a similar tag when we get to the end of the year and compare whether I would still pick these books for these categories or whether something I read in the next 6 months knocks it out of the place it's in. But I'm really excited about the books I still do have to read this year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.